questions are always asked by people when I talk about the field that I am teaching. First is that, what is speech communication? And the next one is, what is the difference between speech communication and other fields of communication? Or in other words, is speech communication a distinct or independent discipline? For this lecture video, I will answer these two questions by defining speech communication, giving you a glimpse of what speech communication scholars do, and presenting the challenges that we will encounter. I will also present the importance of studying speech communication from different contexts. And finally, I will present the current trends and career options that you can take with this degree program. So, what is speech communication? According to Mallier, speech communication is the study of communicative phenomena within specific contexts. You may feel like the definition is loose, or you may feel that speech communication lacks focus. But as we examine further, we may see that we are focusing on studying different communicative phenomena. In other words, we focus on human interactions. Because we see communication as a dynamic process, we also see human interactions as dynamic. And as speech communication scholars, we study different human interactions, whether interactions involve only the self, or two people, or groups, or the public, or even across cultures, and how these human interactions change over time and space. Another thing that we can see from this definition is that context is important in studying human interactions. We cannot fully understand and analyze different communicative phenomena without looking at the context behind the interaction. This is where we use cross-disciplinary research to study these dynamic interactions. We not only use communication theories and methods, but we also complement them with theories and research methods from other fields. Like, for example, some of the concepts we study or use are rooted from the social sciences. Studying communicative phenomena within specific contexts not only provides focus, but it also widens our perspective by understanding the context and using cross-disciplinary research to enrich our appreciation on human interactions. Aside from studying human interactions, we also utilize symbols to create an impact to different communicative phenomena. Symbols can be verbal, non-verbal, or even both, and as speech communication scholars, we use them to create or maintain relationships, persuade people, perform in a given space, facilitate discussions, lead a group, and other things that involve creating an effective message. This is the applied basis of speech communication. We don't just observe and analyze interactions, we also interact and participate in the world that we're studying in. Thus, the identity of speech communication derives from its focus on process rather than content, and its strength derives from its cross-contextual generality. At this point, you may have a hint on some functions of speech communication and why speech communication is important to study. But let's look at the functions and importance of speech communication from different contexts. Let's go first to the context of presentations. We always present in public, whether it's a group presentation in school or in an organization, to a partner or a small group of people, or even a crowd. It may be a speech, a report, or a performance. To present something is inevitable, and studying speech communication increases your confidence in presenting by giving you skills and developing your competence in speaking, analyzing the audience, and formulating effective messages. In the context of relationships, speech communication provides us knowledge in creating, maintaining, and transforming relationships. Not only that we have knowledge, but as we study human interactions, we also apply this knowledge and gain the ability to engage in effective and productive relationships. I'm not saying that you'll be perfect or be an expert in every friendship, romantic relationship, or family relationship that you have, but you have an idea on how to manage relationships or how to start one. Because we emphasize context in speech communication, we are always aware on creating appropriate and effective messages or applying communicative behavior to a specific context. whether it's in a particular community or professional space or a civic sphere. We are able to be aware of these things because we study this context and apply by interacting and creating messages in those contexts. Speech communication also provides knowledge and respect for the role of culture and diversity in communication, and the ability to effectively communicate within and across cultures. Another importance of speech communication is that speech communication provides knowledge, skill, and competence when it comes to discourse. Speech communication develops our competency in making reflections and constructing and analyzing arguments and discourse that intended to influence beliefs, attitudes, values, and practices. Our task as scholars is that the messages that we create should be able to influence or create an impact to those whom we are communicating with. Speech communication is also important in the use of technology, especially if technology provides a channel to encode and decode our messages. Not only we critically evaluate how technological trends and channels affect communication, but we also gain the ability to effectively use technology and minimize the noise and interferences to make our message clear and effective. And the last importance that I will discuss is the role of research in speech communication. Research is very important in this field. In fact, the moment we observe or study the interactions that we encounter, we ask questions to ourselves. And we apply different research methods to answer the communicative phenomena we experience or encounter. Speech communication helps us to be competent in systematic inquiry, including the process of asking questions, systematically attempting to answer them, and understanding the limitations of the conclusions reached. Now that we have an idea on what speech communication is, how it becomes a distinct field, and how important studying speech communication is in various contexts, I'll give you a quick tour of what we're going to study in speech communication. We will explore how verbal and nonverbal messages affect communication. We will look at how voice, diction, body gestures, and movement influence the message, provide context, and enrich the interaction. Next is to explore intrapersonal and interpersonal communication to give us a background and foundation on studying and creating interactions. We also explore some levels of communication such as group communication, organizational communication, and public communication. Here we will look at how different levels of communication work and differ, and here we will develop skills in managing communication on these levels. We will also examine rhetorical artifacts, or a collection of symbols that produces meaning and creates an impact. And not only that, we will also create and deliver sound arguments and effective and impactful messages. We will explore the importance of culture in communication, develop an awareness in other cultures, and communicate appropriately and effectively with other cultures. And finally, we will explore communication in the form of performance. We will not just study how performances create and relay their messages and meanings, but we'll also use creative ways to deliver our message to others through oral performance. These are some of the areas that we will explore in speech communication. And one thing we see about the scope of speech communication is that we have so many opportunities to learn and explore in this field. And as long as humans continue to interact with one another, we won't run out of research ideas. So, what can we do once we get the degree and start to work? The best thing about speech communication is that we have so many career paths to choose. Basically, anything that involves communication, whether you're speaking, listening, reading, or even writing, can be your career path. Do not limit yourself in media industries because communicators are also needed in the business and corporate world. You can venture into marketing, advertising, and public relations, or corporate communications. The skills you learn in speech communication can also be used in holding or planning events. Your instructional communication skills are not just for academic careers, but you can also use those in training and human resources. Speech communication is also a good pre-law course as it will help you organize and construct your thoughts and apply rhetorical concepts in law. You can also use speech communication in STEM and medicine. You can be a speech pathologist or a science communicator. See, you have so many options for your career, and you have to remember that communications are on demand today, especially because of the technologies such as the media and the internet. In this lecture, we learned that speech communication is a distinct discipline with its focus on studying dynamic human interactions, the context of these interactions, and the use of symbols in these interactions or communicative phenomena. We also see that despite being multidisciplinary and borrowing concepts and methods from other fields to enrich the discourse, speech communication is also a distinct field with its own focus and methods. In other words, the primary nature and strength of speech communication is its flexibility, allowing itself to be complemented by various areas and disciplines and having a wider and holistic perspective of studying human interactions. After all, humans are creative, diverse, flexible, but most importantly, unique creatures. And as speech communication scholars, we embody those things in our discipline.